one of the days?
I jumped out pretty early. Like 5 minutes. Okay, so it was like more or less when we started to really talk. But can we just...
Sure. No worries.
Can we take it off from where we left? We don't have to... We can rewind that just a little bit.
Yes, do it. Yeah.
To speak about your thoughts.
Yeah.
On improv right now, since you're in this teaching.
Yes.
Are you think a lot of how to teach improv when you're an experienced teacher?
Yeah. Well, I don't think those two are per se related. I know plenty of experienced teachers who don't think about teaching, or inexperienced teachers who do think a lot about teaching. So,
okay, but could you say that you are both? Like an experienced teacher thinking a lot of... And that's, for me, that's like is the best equation if you want to be a good teacher.
Yes, but not only.
Okay,
I think because there is a value to taking workshops with people who are not very experienced teachers. But I would recommend, hopefully they think about teaching. That would be nice. I think that's a plus. But I, as much as I would love people to come to my workshops or come to my courses and I'm experienced, but there is a freshness to being a relatively new teacher that is super valuable. So, yeah.
Like energy, or what's the freshness, or like new takes, new thoughts? Because
totally.
And be open to that, of course.
Yeah, or people are like, the newer teachers are also just, they have more to discover within class, and you get to be the person that might make them discover something new. So I remember in the first few years of teaching, there was a lot of me like, let's try this. Oh, that's so exciting. Or, whoa, you played a scene I've never seen before. And sometimes I feel as an experienced teacher, I can be a little bit like, yeah, I've seen that move already 10 times. I'm not as easily blown away anymore.
Of course.
And that, so I think there's a value to that. There's a value to experienced teachers and a value to inexperienced teachers. It can be very fresh and renewing to take a class with someone who has been doing it for 2 years. Yeah.
Stay open to that, yeah.
Yeah, you might actually learn something very new.
Yeah, of course. Before we started to talk and the microphone went off and it didn't record anything of what we said. But before that, you were in the end of saying that your current thought on improv teaching right now is that there is no right way to do improv, or staying very open to all, like all moves in a scene can be correct depending on how you, I guess, approach them, or like relate to them, or like perceive them as a fellow improviser.
Yeah.
But how does that count, like when you do a format?
Yeah. So when you, let's say, like you play in a particular genre.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I've been directing an improvised Matrix.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
And so not every choice fits the genre of the Matrix, right? You, playing a unicorn that flies away is probably not as fitting in, there are, I'm sure, situations, but like it's probably not super fitting. So not every choice is very fitting in there. But I do think that there are, even within pretty particular genres, many choices an improviser can make that are the right choice, that can be a great choice for a great show. And having this feeling that there's not one right thing to do, there's only one correct thing, I think that's been an important insight for me. Because when I first learned, I started in short form, and then I started learning long form. And I remember having the feeling like, having a teacher ask me, like, what would be the next step in the story? And I would be like, I don't know. But I had the feeling that there was only one right answer. And then sometimes my fellow players would be like, of course, we have to, kill the dragon. And I'll be like, really? Because I thought that there were also other options. I guess I was wrong. And this is something that I now feel very different about. And then when I'm teaching, I'm trying to also very much teach that. Maybe some players think we have to kill the dragon, but there are also other choices that can also create a great other story. It's not that any choice is perfect, but there are many choices, and I think that the more you learn that there's not one correct way, the easier improv becomes.
But do you agree with the thought then that, like, here would the obvious choice be to kill the dragon, the knight stands versus the dragon or whatsoever scene?
Yeah.
And then it's different between deliberately break that, because I don't, as an improviser, I might not want to see that because it's too predictable as well. I want to be surprised in the audience. I don't want to see the knight stabbing the dragon or whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I would like, as a teacher anyway, to know that the students or the team that I'm coaching are aware of that they know that they break deliberately the choice of killing the dragon. Do you understand?
I do.
Yeah.
But I think that it's not a binary choice. There is killing the dragon.
Of course, a lot of other things.
Right? There are a lot of other things possible.
Yeah.
And if you get scolded for not doing one choice, I think the effect that has on us as improvisers is that we get into our heads, we can be judged for making the wrong choice. I need to make a choice. What will my fellow players think? What will the audience think? What is obvious? It also implies that we all think the same thing is obvious, which is not true.
No,
we don't.
Of course.
And so it's definitely a mindset. Like, if you keep the mindset of, I can make many choices and all of them, or at least most of them, will be 100% supported by my fellow players in the audience. I think that's a really good place to be. You want to try to find that place.
Yeah.
And if you're in a group, and I've been in that situation obviously too, if you're in a group that tells you, Laura, you didn't kill the dragon and that's why this show didn't go well, right? And you're like, this is not helpful in any way.
No.
Because there are so many choices. And I think we should teach in a way where even if someone makes the not so obvious choice according to the majority of the people,
right?
Can we make them look good?
Yeah.
Can we? Sometimes I would ask, like, where did that choice come from? And if that choice came from, I was afraid to do the obvious. I'm like, I need to be afraid.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I'm a bit curious about. Like, I totally agree. Like, if everyone is just obvious from their own perspective, then there is no right or wrong. Like, because you do your obvious choice, and that might be to cuddle with a dragon or whatever choice that is. Even though the majority of the audience might think that it's like fighting the dragon or whatsoever, it doesn't matter. But when that choice becomes to get, I don't know, to make it more interesting or to make people laugh. So it was a very good follow-up question, if you do take notes or whatsoever afterwards, like, where did that choice come from?
Exactly.
And that's also go back a little bit to, like, for me anyway, like, being a bit mindful of why I'm taking different choices in different situations, and also rhymes a little bit with about knowing the rules and crafts and moves that I can break them, because I feel it's hard else to teach improv if I don't have as a teacher, like we're going to isolate and train this thing now.
Yeah, I think there's a subtle difference in saying you should always say yes to your partner versus it can be helpful to train an attitude of accepting in class. And those two, they might look the same when you walk into the class, but I think they program in our students' brains very differently.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I teach a lot on like your scene partner, which is, it's not a hard rule. I've seen amazing scenes where people don't like each other. I think, however, that by training the muscle of liking your scene partner, you will, on average, get more good scenes to happen because your main attitude is just a little bit more positive, a little bit more open. That makes us more creative. It just creates better scenes generally. And the more scenes you play that go well, it's good for your confidence, it's good for your skill set. And then if you're like, yes, I've trained my muscle of, liking my scene partner really well. If I now want to break someone's heart.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good and so juicy. I think you should, but that balance is very important. And I train on the one side of the scale because I think that creates better balance.
Yeah. And when you say like your scene partner, you are speaking about the characters.
Yes,
they are supposed to.
Yes, I say that. Yeah.
Because like your scene partner, I hope that we.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen improvisers that doesn't like each other.
Oh, you feel it immediately. You feel it immediately. I feel like you feel it. Like you watch a show and you're like, I think these actual people do not like each other, and like you can.
I've seen irritation on stage, like, and I can feel struck by it myself as well. Like if I had something like something going on with someone in my group or whatsoever,
It's
I can
super hard.
Oh, that's not nice to perform. Then
no, it can be helpful to then try to like that character.
Yeah, but also to like that improviser.
Totally.
Like just take a break from the conflict, like just shift mindset.
Ask them about that's one of the things. I was in a group and there was one fellow player that I found very difficult to play with. And I really invested in getting to know them better as a person. So that I would sort of, when I got up with them and they would make a choice I didn't like, I would at least remember that they were a good human. And that was very helpful because I just became a little bit more open-minded towards, okay, I would have never made that choice, but there we go. We're just gonna. So that's why I think, come earlier to rehearsal, stay later after rehearsal, have dinners, talk. If you are a guest somewhere in a new group or something, like, get to know them. If you are inviting someone, get to know them. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we also with what we talked a little about before the recording, before I discovered that I hadn't recorded anything, was about your workshop in Amsterdam that I took at your festival about what was the name of creating and directing a format.
Yes.
Was that the name of the workshop?
Yes.
And I found it very, very good because it was so solid. It felt like you really had thought out how to think, how to approach, how to create a format. How can you think about that? Like, how can you do it? And so we had like 15 different parameters, like, and like you said to us that we should put like 3 of these things. Like, what do we want to have profit on it? Would that be our focus?
Yeah.
Like, do we have any time to rehearse? Like, how many like all these kind of different factors or so.
Yeah. I think I am definitely the type of person who will do first and then think about how, like, analyze what I've done. And I'm a theater maker. I've made many shows. I've made scripted shows. And then when I got into improv, I made a lot of formats and shows as well. And so I did a lot of, because of the many shows, a lot of thinking of like, hey, this show has 20 children between 8 and 12 years old who only have a week to rehearse versus, I have this show that I direct completely myself. I can invite however many or however few players I want with lots of experience, anything in between. And so through those different experiences, I realized, it makes such a difference if the people you're casting are experienced or not, if they are young or not, if they know each other or not, if they have a week to rehearse or if they have 10 weeks to rehearse, but only one evening per week. All of those factors make a lot of difference. And so that's how I started thinking about it, only because I've had that experience.
Yeah. And for me, I take away because I do practice with a group here continually, and but like the third choice of we can choose how much we want to practice and when we want to perform and so, but we are not I guess because maybe none of us, or I'm not sure. I think it's fun to develop formats and concept and to think about these things. So it's often me turning out doing it, but as a group also. Yeah, I don't know what I'm thriving or striving for now in this talk, but if I want to start I want to build a concept.
Yeah.
then like you did with Matrix, maybe.
Yeah.
How did you do an audition for people? Because I have a lot of improv friends. I don't know how to approach it because people won't get it on. Like my friends want. If I'm like I want to have 4 different improvisers for this concept or 5.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to have equal like 3 girls or 3 women and 2 men, and I'm already one of them if I want to perform as well. So how do you cope with these things? Also, like because it's also personal.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I could tell you like why I made certain choices, but it's not like, you know what, if you are more experienced, those choices become easier. It's not true. They don't become easier.
But do you give it like a strategy so it maybe get not easier then, but something to cope with it?
Okay. I think maybe if you zoom out, if you do enough shows, you can make the one choice in the one and the other choice in the other, right? So if I am like, I really want to play with Gael, my partner, but I also really want to play an all-female show. Those two cannot be combined.
No.
And therefore, can I make a plan that like has the one, and can I make a plan that has the other? So I don't need to compromise within my one concept of a show. And I think if you find yourself sort of like, oh, I really want this, but I also really want that, make 2 shows. Put one on the shelf for later.
Yeah.
And then commit to this one show. Make the one choice you want to make. And who knows, maybe you'll find out like, well, we tried this one show where I really wanted to play with all of my friends. And it was a great big mess with 12 people on stage. We had a lot of fun. The audience was mildly enthusiastic. So yes, there was a great one-off, but let's now do a different show where you only invite one other player and you're playing a road trip together and, audiences are loving it and you're playing it 4 times. I don't know. Like, right? So I could tell you like some of the choices I made, but then I tried to make other choices in other things.
Yeah. And you don't have to tell me why or like what explanation to whatsoever about. So, but I'm just curious, like, if you had an audition, maybe like to have, you did?
I did auditions. Yes. So with Flock Theater, we decided when we started our company that instead of having a main ensemble for our company, we would cast for every show again.
Okay.
And that was sort of like was a bigger decision to make because it's not that common.
No.
And it also felt like, because we are starting a new company, it was slightly easier to change what is, I guess, usual. And it's interesting because in Amsterdam, now that's what a lot of other companies are doing too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like we were the first to start auditioning for shows. And that has become sort of like a widespread phenomenon in the city. It's really, that's very interesting. And so we started having open auditions for our different formats. And every time Gael and I alternate in who directs. So for instance, for The Matrix, open auditions, we had people come over. I had them do stage finding because I wanted to see how they were in their bodies. I had them play kind of the agent type of character, but also the hero type of character to see, because I knew that I would have a cast that would alternate between those 2 roles. So I wanted to get a feeling of like, can they make that difference? And what else? And we are looking at a combination in the cast where we take different factors into account. We like to have diversity in our cast as much as possible, but not at the expense of anything. So we're not just going to put someone in there because, this is great for diversity, but they're not a very experienced player. So you want to have sort of like this combination of, it's great to show. When I say diversity, I mean it not just in the limited way of, I don't know, like there's so many types of diversity. So for instance, this person is more comedy trained, this person is more drama trained, or this person has a really sort of like confident, dominant style, and this person is sort of like kind of like a smart storyteller type of style. It can also be like, how does it look? I like casting enough women in our group. Now, luckily, we also attract with Flock Theater a bunch of women.
Yeah, so you adapt of course, the audition to whatever concept or format.
Yeah.
Or so you said stage fighting, for instance, or like, can you do the agent? Can you do the hero? How are you in story? Like,
Yeah.
you scene are you into I guess that as well, like how keen or interested are you yourself in doing this concept? Like for the people applying, of course, like I love Matrix, I know all this kind of lore about it or whatever, or like, and that would be like a very nice asset as well.
That's one of those sort of like filters that happens automatically because we're auditioning for the Matrix, and it already attracts more people that are interested in that.
Of course.
Or the people that are interested in like, oh, I want to work with Laura, I want to work with Gail. There are people interested in like, oh, I have played now 2 productions in a row. I'm not going to audition for the next one because I want to have a break. From.
That's like it's good. It's good in the meaning of for the audience as well, like to see new improvisers all the time perform, or like in new constellations and so. And also, as you said, like for me, Gothenburg had that kind of like GBG Improv has it now in a way. Like you do apply for different projects. Like they had a lot of like for like 20 years. I think they had a solid ensemble, and when you applied to that, and when you joined, you could more or less, you stayed forever, more or less. And that also led to, of course, that people were like growing equal much, and people like, of course, the skill level and skill set, and everyone had to have the same equal stage time, and it went pretty up and down in a way. So like doing it project-wise is very nice.
I mean, yes, for all of those reasons. And it also has downsides.
Yeah.
So that's
so because you don't really get that, you don't choose how you work, who you work with, or you don't. It's like up to you and Gail in this matter, or like the artistic director, of course.
Yeah, we have Tanine on board now for a year, so we're like slowly growing just the 2 of us into a slightly bigger team. I think the downside of not having an ensemble is that we invest time and effort during that project to go like, for instance, the stage fighting. I really wanted the cast of The Matrix to be even better at stage fighting. So I put a lot of time of the rehearsals into stage fighting. And that means that a few people got that training, but other people did not. And then some of those people may or may not return in our productions. So that's also how it works. It's a project, right? They come in, they go out.
And then they have that skill of very nice stage
for
fighting.
Instance, and the fact that I put extra time and effort in there is limited to the group and the time frame of that particular production. And so
so you always have to go back in a sense to square one. Also, like with the group constellations as well. Which, if it's always new constellations of improvisers, of course, I guess they know each other.
Like I think I want to say without exception, maybe one exception, but almost without exception, we always had a new person in the next project. Okay. So we keep getting new people in. Which is great, but it also means that they have none of the experience from our previous productions. No, so sometimes we have to explain some things all the way from the beginning again, like, actually, how we do things here.
But it's also very nice. This is a pro then, or like a good thing about it, is that for new improvisers or people that are starting out and maybe have done it for 2-3 years and they want to take the next step, it's also very much broadened up. It's not getting closed. Like, it might be very hard to get on an ensemble from a professional theater if, like, you need to be really good then to apply. But now in a production team, I guess you could.
I guess if you like for some people that are not super experienced but are, for instance, let's say if you are like incredibly funny and the next project is a sitcom, you might be like, okay, you might not be experienced enough for our drama shows, but you are actually quite funny. You're not very experienced, but we might cast you anyway. So there is a little bit more like there might be a project that fits your skill set, even though you're not very experienced. But we also found like actually, if you don't have the training in our style of improvising, which doesn't mean that people need to have flock theater courses, in under their belt, but they do need some sort of like committed style of acting and improvising. If you don't have that, then the chances of getting into one of our productions are just very, very slim. Because we're looking for a particular style whether it's a comedy or a zombie show or sci-fi, we're looking for a particular style.
Yeah.
And so we love having open auditions and meeting new people. And we're also finding that those that get trained by us or that know what type of style we do, those have the best chances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and that's also very good and understandable in a way. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
When I visited you for like 1.5 years ago, and then you didn't have a theater, and now I think I've seen on Instagram or Facebook that you found your own place, or
Yes.
This is big.
Okay. It's literally not big.
But it's not literally, but it's metaphorically, or like
It's a great step. It's a wonderful step.
it's a big step.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
leap.
wonderful. Yeah, it's very nice.
How is it? How is it to run a theater? And also, do you run it with Gail, your partner?
Yeah. So what we have a theater company. We've been like
That's Flock
renting.
Theater.
That's Flock Theater, and under that we like do courses and productions. And every time we rent spaces, so we rent spaces to teach, we rent spaces to perform.
Yeah, and that's been on for several years.
Yeah, yeah. And then we became part of an artist hub. So all these like little studios of different artists that are together in one place. It's called Treehouse. And so we became part of Treehouse with a little studio. And then we moved from our little studio into a slightly bigger studio. And then...
I still at Treehouse.
Within Treehouse.
Yeah.
So there are different studios, smaller studios, medium-sized studios, and very few bigger studios.
Okay.
And so within already being part of that artist hub, we heard that a bigger studio became available there. And so we were like, hello, we would like a bigger studio. And so we eventually got it. We applied for it. We got it. And it was completely worn down. And so we're talking bigger, but that's approximately, I think it's 55 square meters. That was one of the biggest studios they had. It was very like run down. It looked like an absolute S-hole. And we were allowed to move there. We only had 2 weeks of overlap between our medium-sized studio and our big studio. And so in those 2 weeks, we just went with a bunch of volunteers and like we completely redid the space. And especially Tanine, who was part of our team, she was sort of like the leader of that expedition. And it was amazing what she managed to sort of like make happen with us. Both Gail and Tanine worked so incredibly hard. I was in awe of what they did. I was there too a lot, but obviously I watched them do so much. And so it was like sanding and scraping and tearing things off the walls and stuff.
Yeah, and this is during 2 weeks, also to move in all.
Yeah, so in these 2 weeks, we also had a production running and we also had our showcases of our students. But you know how sometimes it happens and then they're like, we're just leaving it. So we had very little sleep.
Yeah.
I think in one night we painted until 3 a.m. in the morning. It was very intense. But also, it's a fond memory now that it's over.
Exactly, it's also very very bonding.
Very bonding. Oh my God, so many of our people of our community came through to like help with some midnight scraping or sanding.
But do you have so you have access to that how much you want now?
Yes.
Or it's only yours place.
Yeah.
Your place, and you can have shows and.
Yeah, so we built that 55 square meter studio into a rehearsal room that can also be a theater.
Okay.
And so we're saying theater, we're like mini theater.
Yeah.
Mini theater. We can stack 35 to 40 people in there, which is tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny. In my head, but if sometime in the future, if I want to have a theater, it's like that size.
Right? It's so cute. It is possible to start running your tiny little theater if you have a space about that size.
Yeah, and also it might be, who knows what's next after this, like in some years, because as you said, like it's incremental small steps. You begin like renting small places here and there and performing there and there, and then you get this small studio, 3 hours, and then this one open up. And
I mean, I've been back in days. I used to have another company, and that company it was a theater school, and I got the opportunity to step into like a full-blown, brand new theater with like 90 seats, beautiful tech. I mean, this was the dream, right? I'm like, yes, I am. Back in the days, I was like 26, 27. I got this opportunity. I'm like, yes, I'm stepping in there. And within 2 years, it went bankrupt. And so I didn't go bankrupt, but the theater that I was one of the main users of, the theater went bankrupt. And that, I mean, that almost, that sort of like was the last push for my theater company to go like, I'm just going to quit because it was for a while already not really working. And then with that bankruptcy, I shut it down. And so for a long time, I was like, I had the dream. I lost the dream. Never mind. And so when I started collaborating with Gael, he is way more a person of incremental changes. Like, we're going to rent space, then we're going to find this little studio being part of the artist hub. This little studio was useless. I'm like, why are we going to pay for this? And then he would remind me of like, then we're part of an artist hub.
Yeah.
And once you're part of an artist hub, other things are possible. And I'm like, what is possible? He's like, I don't know yet, but we're possible. So we're closer to, and so we
like long-term perspective and goal.
Exactly.
He's like, and very strategic.
Very strategic, way more strategic than I am. And so and then a medium-sized studio became available. And Gael was like, let's move. And I'm like, why would we? It is more expensive, right? And so it's sort of like incremental movements was very much initiated by him because he has this strategic thinking that I have less. It's also why I really like working with him.
And maybe why you fell in love, I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. I like this guy. I like a lot about him. But it's these type of steps that got us now, the tiny little theater.
Yeah.
And it also built my confidence if tomorrow I see online there is a nice, bigger theater available, I feel way more confident that we can run it. Well, when I was 27, which is more than 10 years ago, I was like, sure thing, no problem. Let me step in there. What could possibly go wrong? Well, bankruptcy. That's what could go wrong.
But I see from you, Laura, a lot of like motivation and what do you say, like willpower.
Yeah.
Like when you, as you said, like having a bankruptcy when you're like 26, 27, after like doing the dream, a big theater, 90 seats and so, and then come back again and not like.
Yeah.
What made you do like, what drives you? I'm curious.
Ooh, big questions. As much as I want to say like, oh, I believe this, but it's also just my personality. Yeah, I'm a relentless optimist, which gets me in great and sometimes not so useful places. But yeah, I feel very. I've always been also a teenager that wanted to start her own thing and that started little companies already at the age of 12. And like, it's just who I am. I think that considering that I got the opportunity and the privilege of living in a country and having also a supportive social system that helps me just start. I don't come from money in any way, but I do feel that if, shit hits the fan, that my parents can host me in their guest room. And
so I'm a safety net.
I do have a social safety net that made this part of my personality, which is dreams, ideas. Let's do it. Let's see if I can make it happen. Always has been encouraged that way. And I fell flat on my face a few times, but never in a way that I couldn't recover from. So that's been nice. And I feel like part of that's also what I do in improv. Like I step on the stage going like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but there we fucking go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I wrote to you about like what kind of themes and subjects you were interested of talking, since I'm naming the episodes of them. Like, and you also mentioned, teaching improv. We talked about that a little bit. Directing format was. I reminded you that I took your workshop about that. I wanted to talk about that, and you also wrote as I think you wanted to talk about feminism in improv, maybe.
Always.
Yeah.
Yes, I always want to talk about
No, but it's good because I haven't talked about that much in there. And talked a little bit like subject as diversity, ethnicity, and these kind of things, but not like specifically on feminism.
Yeah.
How do you like? What's your thought on it in improv? Then, of course, like.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you come from a country that's not unlike mine, right? So I come from the Netherlands, and I feel that at least in the Netherlands, there can be sometimes an attitude of like, we solved it. We solved the gender inequality. And that...
In the society in general?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And that makes me like so angry. And I'm not saying that we haven't improved in many ways.
No.
And that there are many things going wonderfully. But that I think it's a constant point of attention. Who is not in the room? Who is not being represented? That's gender, but that's so many other things as well, right? It's basically, it's LGBTQ, it's where you come from, it's how you look. It's like all kinds of people are not in the room or at the table or in the conversation. And that, I feel, should be something that we should keep talking about, to keep becoming aware of it.
So it doesn't die out, or that we think that we have solved it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because it's such a tricky place to be. So tricky to think like, we now have equal men and women in our group. Done. And then the next show I see from that group is like the women are barely given time to speak. And like, you haven't solved anything. Much rather have, 5 men, 1 woman, that you let the woman speak. And that's just, I mean, now we're talking gender, and I'm even talking in binaries, but there's still so much to do, and only by talking about it, we can become aware of it, and we can also, be confronted with where we each have our blind spots.
Yeah. And regarding like... because I also want you to have a time back to the hotel.
Festival life.
Festival life, yeah. That you have been in a lot of, in my head anyway, to a lot of festivals. I think you're pretty like root, and I know what you need before you're performing. And so I'm curious about, like a last question, more or less, your most like common notes maybe for people that you teach, or also like, if you've seen a show and you think it's a very well played show, what are they doing on stage then?
Ooh, what a great question. What's a well played show? You can cut this one.
Hard with. Or maybe like the best show, or like one of the shows that you really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Yeah. Oh man. So we started our own festival with Flock, the Flock Festival, and it was for the first time in June, and there was one show there that just blew me away. It was sound painting.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
You've seen it? Okay.
It's so cool.
It's a how do you call it? It's a technique that's been used by some improvisers, but the one I saw was David Moncada, and he is from Colombia, and he is a very how he does sound painting is so smart. There's so many details. He's also a total geek. That's why we love him. And the way he was directing it, because he's conducting it, right? So sound painting is basically a bunch of different artists from different fields. And there is a sign language that David trains with those artists. And so, for instance, he can tell people, now you start something. But he can also tell people, could you give more volume? Like there's a particular gesture for volume. But there are all kinds of gestures. There are gestures like, could you repeat the same thing? It's almost like a
keyboard or
a keyboard, but then with actual people.
Exactly. With different skill set, dancers, singers, musicians,
painters,
actors.
So we had like a violinist, a drummer, we had a singer, we had improvisers, we had a painter, and at a certain point people also moved places, so they went to different. And it was a dream. It was just a dream.
So you were also in the cast?
I was in the audience.
You were.
Because that's, I think, how you can probably enjoy an improv show best.
Yeah, of course.
You can just let go. And I was just, transported to somewhere else. And what I think, if you think what makes it, what a lot of improv shows probably improve with, is this sort of like, what do you want to achieve with the audience? Can you make something beautiful for the audience? Because improv is so fun to do on the inside that we sometimes forget that it is a performance art that is meant for an audience. Now, I think thinking about the audience is something all performance artists do, but improvisers tend to do it a little bit less. They tend to think a little bit more about the inside experience and not, I would say, enough about the audience experience. And if you go to, if anyone, improviser or not, goes to a theater show or a dance show or opera or, whatever, you can really have beautiful, strong experiences in the audience. And I think it's an honor to do, as an improviser, to try to achieve that beautiful experience in an audience. And that beautiful experience can be, I laughed my ass off. It totally can be that, but it can also be, oh my God, I've seen someone play a character and it's exactly my neighbor, but then different. Or, like I remember from that sound painting show, there was a moment where the dance and the projection of the painter together made something new, where I was like, I have never ever seen this visual in my life. And it will just really stay with me. And how beautiful is it to create something in anyone that they're like, I'm going to take this with me for my life. This is something I will never forget. So creating some sort of unforgettable experience with an audience. If so many more groups can really aim for that, because it's not easy, but if you aim for it, you might just, at times
it's achievable.
It is totally achievable.
But we don't put the focus there. And I feel really struck by like the performance. I agree with that, the performance piece of it. Like it's a performance we do for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm doing it, of course, for myself in a bigger sense. Like I want to do this. That's why I'm doing it. But on the stage, the audience are the priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to enjoy myself, of course, and I want you to have a blast.
Yeah.
That is for the audience.
I mean, have you ever, tell me if you had this experience, that you felt, I didn't have a good experience on the stage.
Yeah.
Not like a terrible, but the audience had a great time.
Yeah. And I personally, I want to have that rather than I'm having a good time and the audience.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it's weird, right? You're like, no, I didn't feel good. I felt like I sucked. Like, look at them. They're giving me a standing freaking ovation.
Exactly. And then you because if you don't like validate that and you just put yourself like, no, so I can do much better.
No,
and just
sit down. That was not good.
No.
No, like,
Yeah, I get it. But that's the feeling, right? But then I want to greet people, and then I can talk with the cast afterwards, or the ensemble. Like I didn't feel good. Like
exactly, and you're totally allowed your feelings. You could tell your fellow players, like, "Oh my God, I died a little out there, but hey, they loved it.
Yeah.
That's what counts.
Yeah.
I mean, not at the expense, of anything, but like if we can keep the audience in mind, I think that's yeah.
Maybe that when we're speaking, we are wrapping this up, but I'm just maybe you say like a flaw in improv, like or like where improv is like really could improve as a general concept overall for the whole world in my sense.
I agree.
Is that sense?
I think so.
Because I think that also will raise its status and
exactly.
people will enjoy it much more.
I mean, of course, this is the downside of being experienced, is that you go like, I've seen this before, I've seen that. But I hate that part about myself. And yet, I also think that like we can do it. Improv is amazing and beautiful. It attracts fantastic people. And we can level up. We can level up to something that blows the audience away, that gets full houses, and that is respected as an art form that's being taught in schools. Like we can level up with all of us.
I totally agree with the ambition, and I like the ambition because that will make us to level up.
Yeah,
and I want us to have ambition.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, I so agree. Yes. Okay. Good.
But thank you so much, Laura, that you joined the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. Oh, I love talking this type of, nerdy. All of us,
And I think I can really see, I'll stop the recording now, but I can really see how you and Gael is also very suitable. Like also, like you have different skill sets, like he was, and you maybe stand for artistic, I don't know, but how you complement each other.
Yeah.
And, but you have the same, you want to the same place, like not necessarily, I don't know about the concrete goal, but how to, like you want more.
Yeah.
And that's very nice.
Yeah.
Because that's not,